Hi, you're with Nadine van der Linden, and I'm talking with you today about standing in your power. So, it's really important for me to coach on standing in your power as a therapist because so many therapists struggle with this. And when we cannot have those conversations that we need to have, if we can't share the power with clients, and that's what standing in your power is about. It's about being able to hold your boundaries on the things that matter to you in the therapy room. And that's what makes your career livable and lovable and stops it being demoralizing and a whole series of I'm trapped, I can't, that sort of thing. So this is a really, really important step to take if you're struggling in this area to ensure that you get the most out of your career and that you're able to thrive. So when we're talking about standing in your power, we are talking about boundaries. And some therapists don't seem to realize that we are just as entitled to have boundaries as the client. And that then when that happens, we're losing a lot of capacity to be effective, not just in our therapy interventions, but in the relationship. And so what I'm talking to you about today is the key principles that you need to have on board if you're going to be able to stand in your power and to have those difficult conversations. So number one, you need to realize that you are allowed to have boundaries. Yes, you're allowed to have boundaries. You get to decide what those boundaries are. So it isn't the case that the only boundaries that apply are the boundaries of the client's safety, for example, which is often what we're taught a lot in our training. Of course, that's very important. It's very important that we're respectful of clients, but it's also important that we retain a respect and a commitment to our own boundaries as well. So number one, you are allowed to have boundaries. Number two, you set your boundaries. So people vary in the kind of boundaries that they have. And it's really important that you have a think about what your boundaries are. So for example, some psychologists that I know, they do not allow any email contact between sessions. That's their boundary. And that's important to them. I, on the other hand, do not have, particularly with my supervisees, I don't mind if they email between sessions, and I will even say, look, if a crisis happens, I would much rather that you contact me than wait 4 weeks for your next appointment, because things happen, right? You know, just see your supervisor and everything's fine, and then the next day some terrible event can happen to one of your clients or something really difficult comes up. So sometimes I think therapists get confused because their standard or their boundary might be different to a colleague's or their supervisor even. But that's really important to know, is you set your boundaries and they can be different to other therapists. And number three is you are responsible for holding your boundary. So nobody is going to do that for you. And sometimes I think that's what comes up when I'm coaching with therapists or supervising therapists, is this idea that people shouldn't cross my boundary. And it would be nice if they didn't cross our boundaries, but that's going to happen. And part of that's because our boundaries are different, even between psychologists and therapists, right? So sometimes boundaries are intentionally crossed. Sometimes they're accidentally crossed because there's just a difference between people's cultural perspectives on things or where they personally feel comfortable. So once you understand those three concepts, then you are ready to stand in your power. And the next bit is learning how to have those conversations in a way that's effective and also shows respect for your clients. And that's where my stand in your power, confident conversation, self-study is coming into the piece. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching along, and I will see you next time.